Most of us know that the breath is part of yoga. It's actually a big part of yoga. Why? Working with the breath in yoga is really in service of these higher goals of yoga, which are healing and transformation. There are other ways to say those goals, but that's one way to look at it. We're looking to heal, we want to grow, we want to transform in ways that help us to move forward in our lives. This is somewhat of a simple idea, but the application of breathing in yoga is something that is often challenging for students. Let's think about this a little bit more deeply. First of all, how do we really want to be breathing? How do we really want to be breathing in our lives and also in our yoga practice? There are different ways of thinking about that. What is the starting point? So sometimes when things feel confusing or overwhelming, or maybe we've gotten a lot of different information from different sources and we've had different experiences that we aren't sure how they connect, it can be helpful to think about what is a starting point, or maybe if we've already started, a point where we can really ground ourselves and have more clarity about what we're doing and why. So here it's about healthy breathing. What does this mean? Well, breath that supports our health, our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, and gives us a stability that helps us to tap into something that is more subtle, moving in the direction of energetic experience in a subtle way is how we move through yoga practice. That is the pathway, moving from physical to the non-physical. So it starts with understanding how the way that we breathe is really affecting everything. The way that we breathe affects how we feel, it affects how we move, it affects how we think, it affects our clarity. So much power in the way that we breathe. So much power in the way that we breathe unconsciously. So that might be the starting point, is to reflect on how we breathe and to try to assess how we breathe when we aren't really paying attention. There are different ways in which the breath can be out of balance. Some examples of this are breathing in your chest, having a hard time feeling the movement of the breath in your abdomen. Could be things like rough breathing or holding your breath or breathing in a way that feels very loud. All of these are unconscious imbalances in the way that we breathe that have an effect on how we feel. So if you think just about breathing in your chest, if you tend to be a chest breather, then you might feel stressed. That's the way that we breathe when there's a threat. And so that affects our mind, it affects our emotions. So I always think of the first step in working with the breath is to be aware as much as we can of how we're breathing when we aren't paying attention and what our own habitual tendencies are. So some people might be breath holders, some people might be breathing really fast, there might be an imbalance in inhalation and exhalation. Is to try to assess what your particular tendency for breathing imbalance is. And then what after that? So after you have a sense of where you're starting from, then you can work with breathing practices in a more intentional way. And one way to think about this is, again, foundational essential practices for breathing in life, for breathing in yoga, that provide an essential foundation. So these are foundational practices that help us to feel better, but also help us start to move in the direction of a deeper experience of yoga practice. You've probably been exposed to different pranayama practices. When I think of pranayama, I think of these are very intentional choices around the way that we breathe. So it could be breathing in a faster way or breathing in a more vigorous way, sometimes alternating nostrils. These are different ways of working with pranayama. So a very intentional choice to alter the way that we're breathing or the pattern of breath for a very specific intention. But these pranayama practices, they become more beneficial. They really become more available to us. It's like we can unlock the power of these pranayama practices when we have a foundation of healthy breathing. Healthy breathing has 5 qualities. Deep, so feeling the breath in the abdomen without pushing, but just feeling that the diaphragm can move there. That's the main muscle of breathing. Deep breathing, smooth breathing, breathing without rough patches or jagged edges. An even breath. So this is an inhalation and an exhalation that are about the same in length and quality. Again, as a foundational way of breathing. Deep, smooth, even, continuous, no holding the breath, and quiet. So this quiet way of breathing reflects a quieter state of mind, which supports the inwardness that we're seeking to tap into in yoga practice. So these 5 qualities of breathing are foundation for different pranayama practices and certainly for different practices of yogic meditation. So how do we cultivate these 5 qualities? Through breath training practice. Breath training practice are practices that utilize breathing into resistance. They strengthen the muscle of your diaphragm so that you breathe more efficiently and effectively and optimally diaphragmatically. Those 5 qualities become more trained into the way that you breathe. And over time, you are breathing more spontaneously with these 5 qualities, even when you're not paying attention. This way of breathing impacts our health and well-being. It helps to strengthen and balance our nervous system, which has a profound effect on our lives. And certainly, if we're looking to cultivate a meditation practice and our nervous system is really jangled and agitated, it makes that inwardness that we need for meditation feel almost impossible. This is really what healthy breathing is about. Those 5 qualities that we can cultivate in breath training practices. These are practices like crocodile pose, where you breathe into the floor, or sandbag breathing, where you're breathing into a weight on your abdomen. Just 5 or 10 minutes of those practices done every day gives you the foundation that you need for healing and transformation.